back from Portland last night, and I was on got LAX. We landed at 9:30, and I picked up my car at about 10 o'clock. It was probably 10:15, and I was running along. There's a couple of slow spots, but it wasn't stop and go. But it was 75, and then it was 40, and then it was 75, and then it was 40. So it wasn't too bad. But that's it was at 10:30 at night. Where's everybody going at 10:30 at night?
That's why I do the flyaway when I go fly out of LAX. And do the driving.
Yeah, you know what? Because of the airlines, and I used to just. What are we hearing here? We got big music now.
Oh, I think this is Jan's new theme song.
Oh boy!
What, you used to do what, Bruce?
So it's hard to think with that.
Yeah, wait till the music goes away.
4:45 p.m. to share ideas and talk about the news.
So Zoom Test Kitchen did one, and now Jan's got one.
This is.
Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome. What can I say? Welcome. Hey, if you look at the screen, I'm not on the screen right now. What can I say? Let me shut this off now. All right, hey, that was our new theme song. We have actually two theme songs now. That was the first one. I'll play the second one somewhere in the show, so you'll have to pick it up whether you figure it out or not. But the reality is look at, I know we were talking about something else, but can you see this? Do you see that?
See what?
Eagle.
Chris is driving. He shouldn't be looking at his phone.
Just keep driving. Keep driving.
Keep
Look at the
driving,
road.
buddy.
Keep
driving. Yeah.
It's not the Eagles that. It's not the Eagles that David works for. It's the other Eagles.
Big Bear. Yeah.
There's only one eagle right now, so basically what happened is the second eagle left to get more food. It should be pretty cool. But let's get out of here and let's go back to let me unpin this if I can, and we'll go to the next thing. So hey, how's everybody doing, man? How's everybody doing?
Doing good.
Hanging in there.
Aces.
Good.
Never better.
Good. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but you guys are getting famous right now. You're getting famous, I tell you, famous. So, because this short thing we're doing, well, we're not making any money yet, but when we do, we'll share it. Because I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing this because, I'm just a frustrated comedian. That's all there is to it. So there you have it.
So these eagles have names.
Right.
Because the people in Big Bear or wherever have named them. I think it's Shadow and Jackie. Shadow and Jackie.
That's I think that sounds right.
So Shadow is the male. Who knows which one we're looking at? Oh, you turned it off anyway. But
there
I'm
it
not
is.
sure.
Well, we're in California. It really doesn't matter.
I'm thinking that's probably the male. He's been sitting on top of the babies and the egg for a while.
Look, he looks pretty pissed that his wife's out running around right now.
Maybe it's the female and the male is out getting some more dinner. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on eagles. What can I tell you? I'm not an expert on eagles. If I was, I'd let you know.
It's just really cool to watch them. The picture is so great, and now it's snowing, so she's gonna get totally covered with snow. It's gonna be interesting to see.
Yeah, they're
I'm monitoring it. I'm monitoring it, so when the other eagle comes back, we'll switch back. It'll be the eagle cam from here.
Yeah. So
there are two eaglets. There are two eaglets there, and one egg hasn't hatched yet.
Right. When you see the little eagles, you'll be pretty impressed because it's nature at its finest,
As a matter of fact, Kenny, it was just on TMZ, the evening TMZ show.
About that?
Here, just shown here in Florida. So.
Oh, neat! So it's a national hit.
Gone viral.
Yes.
Oh yeah, man! It's happy news. That's what I like. It's happy news.
Right.
I love happy news, man. I love making me smile and laugh, and it's good. Somebody said something to me, and I think it was Bruce. I spoke to Bruce during the week, and Bruce said to me, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this, Bruce, but if you do, it's too late anyway. But he said, hey, look, when I started this during COVID, well, Bruce, you could put it in your own words, okay? Why don't you put it in your own words rather than me paraphrasing what you said?
I don't remember. Where are we going? To give me a hint. What were we talking about? We
You
talked
said
about a
that
lot of
when
things
we were
during the week.
COVID.
Was it?
No,
wait,
we
was
said
it?
we
Was
talked
it when
about
he had
how
the sex
COVID, how I
change
started
thing?
this with COVID, and we had people to talk to, and we got us through it.
You know what? I was telling Jan and I had mentioned this, I think you guys all before a number of years ago, that when we first started to do this, there was, the group that's here now, plus we've picked up a few people for sure, but to be alone going through COVID, especially when nobody was working, you really, you had your network of your friends, like Wayne and I, Wayne's in Phoenix area and I'm in LA, and I have a couple friends in the Florida area, and we talk occasionally, but not all the time. And the one thing that was so good about this really helped my brain and helped me keep my shit together because every week we would all get together, and you guys are all over the country, and in Seattle and Nashville, and it was nice to see all the people that do the same things that we do in one form or another get together and talk about what they were dealing with and how the cities were dealing with it, and the fact that we either had work or didn't have work, or why we didn't or why we did, and just all of that. It made it so it didn't feel like we were so alone, and even though we weren't, of course, because there's millions of people all over the country that were dealing with it, but it was our way to connect with each other and vent a little bit and just be there as every week as a group. Kept my shit together. I'll tell you, I used to look so forward to it because it was just, it was just nobody else to talk to, that, everybody's in the same room and can talk about the issues, the issues of how things were, how you're dealing with it. And it helped me incredibly. It was a lifesaver, and I
Son Sedlacek, he was the one who said that it is cheap, this is cheaper than therapy and better, it's
by all means, yes.
And I think we still need it. I think we still need the camaraderie and the feeling of belonging more than ever before, even though not all of us have the same opinions. As a matter of fact, that's what makes it so exciting, is that we all have different ways of life. We all come from different places in the world. Wayne, now we have Denny. I love it. Denny, by the way, you should see some of your shorts up on YouTube. You look phenomenal. You sound great. It's amazing. Greg Baker, your laugh is getting over 600 views a week now.
I have a question about that. Why the program that you're using to generate those shorts, at least on one of the Facebook posts that you put up, it like goes back to a commercial for the name of the program every 15 seconds or every 30 seconds, and then it cuts back to the short.
I don't see that on my end. I don't know what I'll have to. If you could find that one, let me know.
It was the one that featured David and I from last week.
Oh no, that was Facebook. Mark. That was Mark. Mark's on tour and he wasn't on camera, and so whenever you speak, no.
Oh, maybe, yeah, I don't know.
Onto a production. Yeah, that's what it was. And I was worried about that myself because it felt like it was a commercial for him. And so that's why I had to limit it, and I try to cut it out as much as I could. No, the company I'm using is called Opus. They're really amazing.
Okay. Yeah, but that's exactly what it looked like to me. I thought it was, Jan's using this program that every 30 seconds it goes in and
it was on Tour Network. It was on Tour Network. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Because Mark would not Mark, right? Mark J. Yeah. He
didn't turn on his camera, so his logo was on there instead.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for clearing that up.
Well, you're very welcome. We're very welcome. So what's new in anybody's life? Anybody working? Anybody having fun? Anybody anybody schlupping? What's going on?
I'm leaving tomorrow.
It's all just shit, Jan. It's just shit.
And thanks for the uplifting comments.
I bet David Dansky is one of the most workingest people on this chat right now.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm leaving tomorrow for 10 days in Florida and now South Carolina and North Carolina.
At all Eagles stuff or other stuff?
Oh, yeah. Hotel California.
Is it Hotel California?
Yeah, Myrtle Beach. We're going to go watch the fires in Myrtle Beach. And Stewart, Florida, and Roanoke Rapids.
Aren't there like serious wildfires down near Myrtle Beach or something?
Yeah, it's very serious. Very bad smoke there also.
You're going to go do shows there, huh?
Yeah, well, Myrtle Beach itself hasn't been affected, but the fires are pretty close. Like 5 miles from Myrtle Beach, that kind of stuff. But I think they're going the other way. So nobody said anything about us. I mean, it's the middle of a tour. If we cancel that one date, we still keep going, But I think we're still going. We play.
You doing all flight dates, David, or you just jumping onto a tour bus and then doing the rest by bus?
No, the tour bus. The entire show is in the belly of the bus. They can, but never do a show without the bus. If it's a fly-in date, it's a whole nother thing to get them a backline. So it's always the bus. And the bus gets shuttled between Nashville and LA for storage. It's in the East Coast now. They hired the George, who runs the band, plays in the band, also drives the bus. As long as it's not a really long, overnighter. But when it comes to night stuff, we hire a guy who used to drive for Alabama, because the band has a connection with the band Alabama. So we get Donnie, he comes in and he drives for us, and we all just have a bunk and we sleep. And once in a while we have to spend the night on the bus, but most of the time we're in a hotel.
Doesn't George own the bus also?
Yeah, he owns the bus, he owns the band gear, all the
Isn't that interesting, Denny?
Everything.
I just think that's very interesting that they've got that level of stuff. I mean, the investment in the band. I mean, that's a huge investment to have a tour bus.
Yeah, it's 20 string instruments,
But George does everything. And by the way, Dave, you left out the fact you said everything was in the belly of the bus, but the reality is the guitars are in the stateroom.
Right.
In the bus.
The back lounge is filled with guitars and merchandise and parts, things like that. So the back lounge we go back there to make a phone call, but we're pretty much always in the front lounge.
So how many bunks? How many bunks and how many people?
Yeah, that was my question.
There's 7 bunks. Well, wait a minute. It's a 12-bunk bus, and the bottom one of the so it's 3 tall and 2 deep, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 tall. That's 12 bunks. So one of the bottom bunk and the middle bunk, they pulled out the bed and they made it into a closet. So all the work clothes and all because they wear jackets and ties for the show. So that bunk, those 2 bunks are one closet, and then the other 3 bottom bunks are storage. We just throw our shit down there, and then there's 7 bunks for the 7 of us. So that's kind of how it works out. So we all have our own.
You need all the space underneath, because I mean, I've traveled with a lot of guitar bands, and we used to put the guitars in one of the bunks, or at the important ones in the bunk, and then that way, because the back lounge, man, once you lose the back lounge, man, to be stuck everybody into that front lounge.
Something, it's not really a problem.
Really, eh?
When George is driving,
there's not 12 people. It's only 7 people at the
most. Only 7 people, true. And one of them is driving most of the time. So it's really not a big deal. Everyone gets along. And the front lounge is, a full-size lounge. 7 people can sit there comfortably, or we can watch TV, or they can play video games.
And, hey, David, does it have a slide out so that when you're parked, it's bigger?
No, the buses. Here's one of the things about George. He's a smart guy. He knows that if he has an older bus, and I think it's 2006 or 2010, whatever it is, the engine on that bus does not need all of the crap, the environmental crap on it, and runs better and more reliably than the new bus engines.
Probably gets decent, better fuel mileage too.
Yeah, so it's very important for him to have that older engine even though it's been rebuilt, it doesn't matter. The technology in that engine is better for touring because he's
so he has over the air.
So long.
Is the heat and air conditioning over the in the back, or is it a unit that
they're on the roof.
Have to be on?
We have 3 units on the roof.
Okay.
3 heat pumps, heat and air conditioning.
Okay.
Up on the roof.
Yeah, but that means you need to have the generator running all the time, though, for these to work.
Well, it's either the generator or the engine. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
How often do you get shore power on a show like that?
Well, we get shore power half the time. So
it's very interesting. That's all I'm saying. It's very interesting because they're not a name band. They're a cover band basically, but they really have a lot going on. It's really amazing. Tell Denny about the sound system setup and what you do.
Well, we have one rack that fits in the bus. That's the biggest and heaviest piece that we have, and it's like an 11 space rack, and then on the top it's got a QL1 for the in-ears. So we've got 4 Axion receivers with 4 each, and we've got 3 with 4 each, and then we've got the PSM 1000s in there, and we've got the antenna combiners for both of the send and receive. We've got a UPS and a drawer, and that's completely self-contained. So we roll in, put 1 AC plug in the wall, put up 3 antennas, and hit scan, and we're ready to go. It's pretty well done. Jan, your mic is off.
And then you have to jump into the house snake, right?
Well, then we have a splitter system that's almost finally gone. We're working our way towards being 100% Dante into analog outs on the rack. And we'll have 32 outputs from the rack, goes into a fan out that goes into the front of house wall. And so they get analog no matter where we go, even if it's.
By the way, David, where did you get that stuff?
I think we got it from SOUNDBROKER.com.
I think I know where we're going here. Where are we going here?
Yeah, we gotta say we got a great deal. Jan could get it when nobody else could. George isn't going to go with somebody he doesn't know just because I know him. He's going with him because he did the best job. He got the best price. He got equipment that nobody else could get for us. And Jan knew George when I knew George, because we were buying it right then. I got there just at the beginning of the project, so I kind of took over it.
Thanks to Kenny Newman, I might add. Thanks to Kenny Newman.
Very convenient that the previous guy broke his leg or whatever he did, huh?
Yeah, and he decided to get off the road even when he got healed. He didn't want the job back. But Kenny Newman found the job and told George to call me. So I didn't even look for this job. I just got a phone call out of the blue, says, "Hi, Kenny Newman told me to call you. We're looking for a sound guy." Well, what do you got? Eagles.
Kenny has been very generous over the years in passing along work. You know, one of the most interesting jobs that I did came from Kenny, and that's when I went to the Dead Sea in Jordan.
And who was that? Was that with Tom Nix?
No, it was with Elvis.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
And
how'd that
still
go?
do shows with Elvis.
Good for you.
Whoa. The Elvis that left the building?
Well, not that Elvis, but
forget his real name though. I know who you mean though.
Ron Steffen.
Right, Ron. And he looks kind of like Elvis if he puts on those glasses.
A little bit, yeah. But that Jordan thing went great. You know, we went over there.
See that?
Drug Gary along, and we were there for 9 or 10 days, and it was a science conference put on by the princess, who was the king's uncle's daughter. And so I had a photo op with the princess, and we had the king there the first day, and up at the top of the driveway of the hotel was a Chevy Dually with a 50 cal in the back of it. So it was pretty 50 interesting.
Cal? Wow.
Oh, it was a huge gun, and it was pretty interesting.
Wow, American tax dollar at work. I love it. That's it.
Well, I'm sure you nailed it, and that's why just like David's nailing that Hotel California gig, and so that's why I love referring people for gigs.
Yeah.
Oh, they love him. They love him. I was on the road with them for one show. I went there and visited them, and when they were in Baltimore, and George just thinks the world of David.
Of
Absolutely the
course,
world.
of course.
Yeah,
And
well,
why not? David puts all his heart and soul into his gig, and he comes with a lot of love. I mean, he's been around a long time. He's not doing it because he needs the money. He's doing it because he loves the work.
yeah. I mean, everybody, they're really good people, and they're really talented people, and the technology is there. I'm working with new stuff. It's pretty cool, and I don't have to do that much work. That's the other thing. I mean, here I'm out with a rock and roll band, but I'm not doing all of that stuff that people usually have to do. I help George stack the guitars. That's it. George says, let the kids move the heavy stuff. I go, okay, George, that's all right with me.
I like to point out that generally our bunch are people that are passionate about what they do and do it because they love it, not because, they got into it for the weird reasons, Anyway, as far as I can tell, that's what it's been like.
Well,
Sure.
what I have found over the years of working with, sound engineers and including myself, every one of us has some sort of musical ability. We played some sort of instrument somewhere in our lives. We couldn't make it as a musician, so we wanted to stay in the business somehow. And there we go. Denny, what do you play?
Well, actually, not me. And I'll tell you, it's really weird how it happened. So I was, I forget how old I was, but I was pretty young. And we show up at an uncle's place, and there's one of those cheesy little keyboard. It's like, a rectangle. It's a cheesy little electronics on 4 little legs. And I do ding, 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 ding. And my little brother could barely see the keys. He starts to play, and he plays Edelweiss, da, na, 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 na. Anyway, I couldn't believe it. So a couple of months later, my mom takes out her acoustic guitar. I do dling, dling, dling. He takes it and he starts playing, I forget what song, I think a Beatles song. So in my mind, you either have it or you don't. And I didn't have it. So I considered myself not a musician, but I was raised by, there's not a word for this in English, believe it or not, but there is in French and it's German. It's called a meloman. Mellow for melody and man for maniac. So my father was a meloman. He had a sound system that cost the price of half of what he paid for his car. He had over 1,500 records. And before I was in grade 2, I knew probably more different types of music, and I've heard more different types of music than probably most people don't hear until they're in their 40s. And not only that, but I had my father sitting me on the couch and going, hear that? That's the flute. Hear that? That's a balalaika, and then, so I was ear trained. So, and then as soon as I saw my first song console, I knew how to work it. And then I got a bigger one, I knew how to work it. So me, compared to everybody, I know like most of you guys have been musicians, not me. It was always sound right from the start. So I'm an oddball that way.
Well, that's good, but you had a musical background because it was all over your life. Your mother, your brother, your father.
Yeah.
So you were inundated with that actually.
Yeah.
Can I tell you a story? I mean, I'm not what I consider a musician at all. But when I was in 4th grade, I started taking trumpet in elementary school, and then by 8th grade, I was like, oh, I'm still playing the trumpet. And then I got braces on my teeth, so I had to move to a bigger mouthpiece. And anyway, so somewhere along the line there, the band director said, we should record the band. I said, oh, I know how to do that. I can get us a tape recorder, and I started going in that direction for recording the band instead of being in the band. And I have recordings of me playing in the band that were made with my equipment, because I was like transitioning sort of. But I don't consider myself a musician at all, because that's all I ever did was, it's in high school, at the most a couple of years of high school. The point is, I'm working for Barry Manilow, and many years ago, he said to me, oh, it's so great to have a musician running the sound. I'm like, what? I'm like, he just, so there. What I'm reinforcing what Jan said is I have a feel for music more so than some people that are just turning the knobs and knowing exactly what the electrons are doing inside. So the feel for the music kind of makes you a musician in his mind. It was really funny when he said that. I went, "What?" And then,
well,
and
you're
then,
actually playing. You when you
Well, yeah.
mix the show, you are part of the band. You
Well,
are
sure.
mixing. That is your instrument.
And it reminds me of when I worked for Sergio Franchi. This is an opposite thing happening. When I worked for Sergio Mendes, right? He had this guy. You remember Paul at the A1 Audio Shop, David?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul was his sound guy for many years, apparently. And Paul was a guitarist at heart, but he would dabble in doing sound. Well, Paul was his sound guy for many years. Well, when I started, Paul had just left. And Sergio said to me, he goes, "Oh, it's so great to have a real sound guy." So, you either way, real musician, real sound guy, whatever I am, they liked it. It was great.
Well, let me ask you something. Didn't you work for Paul Anka for many, many years? And wasn't he a fanatic on the way it had to sound?
Of course. Yeah.
So you've worked with people that are really discerning on what they want to hear, and so you have to play that part in their lives. Otherwise, you're out of there.
Of course, yeah. Oh, that's the whole game, yeah.
Yeah.
I hear stories about who was I hearing about? A Dream Theater. I went to see my friends. My friend Steve Baird was setting up the Dream Theater, and Ace was doing the sound. And I had not met Ace before, but Steve was telling me that the band just doesn't even ever say anything to them about the lights or the sound. They just expect that they're doing the right thing. And it's like, wow, really? You don't get critiqued based on a recording of the show or a video of the show or something, or what they saw on YouTube? Nope, no critiques. Just have fun, make it sound good, make it look good. Isn't that great? I just am envious of that kind of gig.
Well, that would be awesome. Kenny, your experience is much like mine. I played piano and trumpet when I was a kid, but that was done by 6th or 7th grade. And then I got back into it hanging out with my friends in high school and never went back to playing. But I always thought that I had a good feel for music and how, where to put it together. And hopefully those that know me think I have pretty good taste in music. But
that's what it's all
let me
about,
ask
the
you.
feel.
Let me ask you a question. How long have you been doing what you're doing?
Well, I started hanging out with my friends' bands when I was in high school, so I was 16 or 17 years old, and I'm 70 now, so couple of minutes. And
it's given you a good life, right?
Oh yeah, I couldn't think of anything better. I mean, it's way better than working for a living. And I do want to make a public service announcement. Remember, we don't do this because it's easy. We do this because we thought it was going to be easy.
Wait, you thought it was going to be easy? I did it because I saw all the chicks hanging around by the band, man. That's
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many bands I got fired from because of that reason. Hey man, that's the guitar player's girlfriend you're hitting on. You're out of here.
That my object was to make as many lights on the console as I can light up because it was the babe magnet.
Exactly.
Oh my God, I can't imagine what kind of babes you got.
I took piano lessons for 5 years. I studied music theory and all that, but I hated to practice. I could play anything. I walked into the band room and I picked up a clarinet and I could get a scale out of it. It didn't matter what it was. I had that feel for the music, but I just hated to practice. And I also wanted to be in like a marching band because my high school had a great marching band and you can't play the piano in a marching band. So I just stopped playing. But I was also a dancer. So I always
you
had
could play the cello in the marching band.
No, I didn't have cellos in the marching band.
Just ask Woody Allen. Come on.
Yeah. I wanted to play the drums. My parents said there's no way in hell in an apartment you're playing the drums. And then I came home one time with a tuba. They turned me around and sent me right back to school.
Yeah. By the way, a drum kit is a great gift to give to a child whose parents you hate. Really, seriously, it's a wonderful idea.
You know what? When my son was about 3 years old, I put my when I moved out here, I bought another drum set because I call myself a closet drummer. I don't play in front of anybody, but my son was the professional drummer at some point. But anyway, so my wife then had a meltdown because I set the drum set up in the living room, and she says, "Why do you put it out here?" And I says, "Well, for Garrett." And she says, "What do you mean? He's only 3." And I says, "Just leave it alone. Just leave it alone." One day I came home and he was sitting on the stool, like hitting the snare drum with one hand. And like every day I came home, he was doing something different. And before long, it was stuff that I could recognize. And that started drum lessons. And
that's amazing.
Until COVID happened and AB5 happened out here, he was actually a working drummer that made a living playing. And now he's in his 6th year in the Army. And having a great time, by the way. He really loves it.
Is in the Army band?
No, oddly enough, they wanted to put him in, but he had his associates, and they wanted him to have a degree. They said, if you had your degree, we could put you right in the band. And he's like, well, I don't. So
interesting. Do they want him to have a degree in music?
Yeah, music degree. Yeah, and they would have. They would have gone taken him through basic training and put him right in the band. Because actually, when I talked to him about it originally, I said, there is that possibility that you could do that. So, but he's, I don't know. I haven't seen him that much since he went in, and he's now married and lives in Oklahoma, and the Army's got him in school now. So I don't know what he's going to do. But one of these days we'll get out to see him and. I wish he'd come get his drum sets because he's got 3 drum sets and they're taking up all the room in my garage. They're all in cases.
Chris Coos might be able to help you out there. Chris could help you out.
Speaking of drummers, and little kids playing drums. I don't know if you guys are hip to David Foster at all, but David Foster and what's her name, Catherine McPhee, McPhee, I should say, have a son that's maybe 2 or 3 years old. Maybe 4. Anyway,
really? I didn't know that. That's great.
Yeah, and that kid is a drummer already because they just let him loose kind of like you did with your son on the professional drum kit, and they have JR, John Robinson as their drummer. So it's like, oh my God, you couldn't be in better hands in terms of learning how to play drums. So apparently he's a pretty good drummer already at just a few years old. It's amazing.
Holy cow.
No, those 2 people are, Christine and the Foster. They are very, very high echelon, musician people. If there's such a thing as musician people. Hey, Fred, what about you? How did you get into it? I mean, you're more technical than anybody else here. It seems like, your position that you're doing is more technical from the broadcast standpoint of view than being a live sound engineer. Would you agree with that or not agree with that?
Absolutely. I'm 2 jobs. See the desk behind me? I have to run that, and then all that stuff up there. I have to program all of that. So I have 2 jobs.
What do you know? I didn't realize that was real. I thought that was, like a background, green screen thing.
That's not a green screen?
No, well, that's one of the trucks.
Actually, are you in the truck right now?
No, I'm not in the truck right now. That's a background, but
that is a background.
I knew it.
I don't know what truck.
Maybe you're in the truck right now.
I'll look at it for a second, but
being sports A1 is very involved, is it not?
Yeah, well, especially these last 3 shows I've done because they were all surround sound shows for CBS, and it's a 1-day set, shoot, strike. So I walk in as a blank desk. I have to program all the faders. I have to tell the faders what they are. I have to figure out all the subgroups. I have to figure out all of the outputs. And then when it's like a birthday desk, I have to do all of the patching to the routing system. I mean, it's a lot of it's 2 to 2.5 hours just sitting there on that computer. Over there. Let's see, I gotta go that way. Yeah, that screen right there.
Yeah, you guys always amazed me. I did a couple of truck gigs with the IEC, and I'll tell you, it's confusing as shit if you don't know all the ins and outs of everything.
Oh my God, yeah, and every truck's different. That's the problem. Nothing. That's the problem with the digital world is everything is different, and you can't take a file out of this desk and plug it into another one. It won't load the same because they're not integrated the same.
So Fred,
and it seems like you got a TT patch bay there as well. What is that for?
That's all the I/O. Well, yeah, I'd have to put up a different picture, but yeah, see that over there on the side? That's all the I/O. So that's at the top is generally mics into the mic pre's, and then all the CalRec outs that feed DAs, they could feed router, it depends on how the truck's integrated. You know, everyone's different. Everybody utilizes the IO differently. And then depending on what mode you're in and what truck you're in, how much IO did they buy? That particular desk, if you were to fully load it, does 4096 squared. So you could have 4,096 inputs and 4,096 outputs if you could
Holy shit.
buy everything that console would do. It never is that. But I get it. Usually I get it. It's got 48 mic inputs and, you know, maybe 48 line outputs, maybe. Right. Sometimes it's only 32. Just depends on the truck. The little Brios that I get, the little Rush trucks, they're 24 ins and outs, and then everything else is done either Matty or AES or Dante. Again, it just depends on who integrates the truck. So it's
so you're not only programming that whole thing and doing all that, then you also got to run the event, and you got to keep the whoever the talent is happy at the same time, right?
Yes.
So and he bakes cookies too, as well. You know, he's got a baking thing going on as well.
When I was working with Bob Dixon, you know who Bob Dixon is, Fred?
Oh yeah, Bob Dixon's he was an awesome guy.
Yeah. He always told me, he said, if you ever want to get into TV, sports, audio, you have to learn the whole IFB thing, because IFBs kind of run the thing. And is that still true?
Yeah, Bob did a lot of HBO boxing, and I did Showtime boxing, so he was my opposite. I started with Showtime in '91 and did it until the Showbox series came around, and then Greg Calvin took over Championship, and I went to Showbox and did about 200 shows with Showbox, and then the Diamondbacks baseball team came to town, and I got stuck in 23 years of doing baseball, and now that's over. Thank God.
Denis, speak up.
Denny's got a question. I can see his hand up.
Yeah, Fred. Sorry, could you hear me?
Oh yeah, you're just bumping up just a little bit more. You'll be good.
Okay. Well, my question is this: I mean, just like live guys now are bouncing from console to console, you know, depending on the type of gigs they have. Like they build up a file and they build up files for the different setup. Like, isn't that also your case? So like, for example, like at different trucks, you save different files so that when you go back to that truck, you don't start from scratch?
Generally, that's true, but sometimes the computer crashes and you lose all your stuff. And I don't save anything because there's no point. I don't know what truck I'm going to be on any given day, and it's not my job to back up their stuff. So I don't do it. So sometimes I'll walk into a truck and all of my files for the last 15 years are gone. For example, this CBS truck that I'm in right now, it started out being a Mira mobile truck, and then it was bought by NEP, and NEP did some updates, and so it was M12. So the first show I did in Albuquerque, when I showed up in Albuquerque, I went to the engineers. I said, okay, we're doing a 5.1 show. I just need I'm going to make main 1 and main 2 5.1 outputs. I'm going to put my program on main 1, and I'm going to put all my effects on main 2. I want you to program the program button in the router to be main 1 over main 2, and every other button on the router, I want you to make main 2 over main 1. And we pulled teeth going back and forth because the truck's only 4 channels wide. So he had to do all this, jump through all these hoops to make the truck 6 channels wide, even though they had just upgraded all the EVSs. The EVSs will do 16 channels each, but only 8 of them come into the cow rack. So it's like, so you just don't know where you're going to be on any particular day. Everybody does it differently, and it's a real challenge. And I got 5 hours. Generally, show up 5 hours later. You got to be ready to fax because production wants to do some pre-pro, and then you got to go take a lunch. And if you don't take a lunch, then you get a missed meal, and then the client's pissed off because they're paying you overtime.
Well, I hope you get well compensated for all your efforts, Fred, because that sounds like a nightmare.
Well, I get paid a good rate. I mean, but it's something I've always wanted to do. I mean, the agony of defeat, I think I told this story before, was what got me into being a camera person. When a guy flew off the thing, I was 4 years old, and I said, I want to show people what I'm watching right now. And I was able to write down the word cameraman before I could write my own name. And when I was 21 years old, I was shooting a handheld camera, doing live Phoenix Suns NBA basketball for the world to see. I mean, we were doing stuff for the cable company, but that was the one that actually went out. And then I did camera for a few years, talked my way into the tape room. We used to run 2 1-inch machines by myself. Actually, the little truck that we had at the cable company, I shaded 4 cameras and had 2 1-inch machines over here on the side. So I did replay and video. And then I talked to all of a sudden we lost the audio guy one day, and I'm like, well, I can do audio. I've done this before, and unfortunately now I've been stuck there ever since. It's a thing.
And that's how many years now? How many years?
I think my first sound gig was at the Ramona Bowl Music Association. I was 17. I just turned 66. So
wow, very fascinating. Yeah, we got a lot of talent in this room. A lot of talent.
It's amazing how young we all started.
I know, is it?
It was, for me, it was like coming out of high school too, because I played the drums in a band, and you guys all remember, I'm sure, Kenny, Rock City Sound with Sheldon Leonard, right? Well, he had A7s in his garage, and he was the guy that did the Dutchess County Fair and all the Battle of the Bands in our school districts and everything. And I used to hang out with him, and I'd have somebody else play my drums, and I'd go down and play with the console because I never liked how my drums sounded. And before long, by the time I got out of high school, I was like, fuck this playing shit. I want to mix. So, I sort of grew up with Sheldon through all of his transformations. And then we parted ways when I went to New York and started doing corporate stuff and real band stuff. And he went in a different direction. And, we'd bump into each other on shows once in a while, but I'd never, work with him again, which is really sad because we had a good time.
Have you talked to him lately? How's he doing?
I haven't seen him in 20 years, to be honest with you.
So he had some health issues at some point, didn't he?
I think he did, and his partner at one point, because he got a partner, and then they had a bad split up, and then I think he sold to somebody else, and then it became Firehouse or something like that. But
he sold it to out of New York City, Sound Associates,
and then Sound Associates sold to the
Firehouse.
Firehouse is in Red Hook. They're about 3 miles from where my brother lives in Red Hook, New York. So every time I see my brother, I usually run down and say hi to the guys.
Right.
Yeah, it's really funny how we all sort of started in high school. It's like, what?
And we all
does that happen these days? I wonder, because it's a way more complex landscape these days.
Many, and you guys could probably chime in on this one, but I have a lot of people ask me, and some of them are just before college age kids, how do you get into the business, and what do I need to do what you do? And when I think about it, we couldn't do it the way we did it now because it's so corporate and insurance is involved. And I used to go out and do shows for nothing just to get experience working with people, and I used to tell people, your job is to make me think I can't live without you. And the first thing is show up on time, and,
good advice.
Have a work ethic.
And if you got a good work ethic, and I used to tell the guys, don't spend a lot of money on going to some highfalutin college because they ain't going to teach you what you need to know. And I says, if you make me think that I can't live without you, I'll teach you what you need to know. Because
hey, speaking of that, Bruce, a friend of my sister's just texted me yesterday, and she said my niece is going to sound engineering school, and I wonder if there's a book that I could buy her that would help her. And I was like, kind of, what?
The Yamaha Ergel book?
What, the Yamaha Sound Reinforcement Handbook? Well,
yes,
oddly sound enough. Reinforcement, but of course that's kind of the Bible. And you can learn a lot from that book.
And what was it? John Ergel had a recording studio one.
Oh yeah, okay, so that's what I want to know.
And there's there's a good studio in Phoenix. I think it's God, I can never remember the name of it. Wayne, you might know.
Saltline, Chaton.
No.
What about Full Sail?
I wouldn't hire anybody from Full Sail. Full Sail people have their heads right up their ass so far. It's unbelievable. And half of them don't know what to do.
Remember, everything you hear today is an opinion.
Can I quote you on that, Bruce?
You know what? I've had... Well, you know what? I'll be really honest with you. Well, I'm... Okay, what'd you tell me to say, Jan? I'll be frank with you. I can't say honest.
No, blunt. Be blunt.
No, blunt. I have had so many bad experiences with Full Sail people. Here's my experiences. The lighting people that come out as lighting directors, they're usually really good. The sound people have never had ear training, don't know black box theory, how to troubleshoot. They think they're going to walk in the door and they're going to take my job, and they don't even know where the truck is. And that's been my experience. And there's a couple of places around the country that have small recording schools that Wayne, one of the guys that we know that did stuff for PS a while back, he went to the one in
Phoenix. There's the Conservatory of
Conservatory.
Recording Arts and
Yeah,
Sciences.
Crass is the one for me.
You know what? That's one of the best ones in the country, and it's reasonably priced, and I tell people to go there. I also tell the kids now, I say, don't spend a lot of money on going to some fancy-ass university. I said, go to your local community college, take a networking class, because everything I do is now networked. All the PA rigs are all networked. I said, take a networking class and a basic electronics class. You don't have to fix the damn thing, but you got to learn how it works and route, troubleshooting and signal flow. And if you take basic electronics and then stick your nose right into the networking class, and then when you get out, you just start to hang out, you get with some bands and do local stuff. And as much as I hate to admit it, if your church has a PA system, get into that. But I said, it's really hard now, because you end up going, when we were all kids, companies they booked their own labor. And what happens now is nobody that I know of does their own labor. They all go to labor companies. And if you work for a labor company, you're going to get coined, and labeled as a number in a book, and you're never going to get appreciated. You're never going to rise to the cream of the crop. You're never going to get anywhere. And what you need to do is find an engineer that you speak the same language with, and just stick your head right up his butt and be there with him all the time and learn all you can learn, and make that guy think he can't do shit without you, and you are on your way.
Yeah,
I'm
do it with the
100%,
community
100%.
college situation, where you're going through the community college,
Community
work with
college.
that. I mean, you know how I started?
Yeah.
I mean, I was 10 years old, and I was fascinated over the fact that they were playing the Pledge of Allegiance through a speaker. And I said, what the hell, man? This is, and and I said, wow, I got to get involved in this somehow. And then I found out that this machine was in the principal's office, and, and then eventually, well, because of another reason why, why I was in the principal's office, but that has nothing to do. And then I saw this tape machine, and I said, I can do that. And so I volunteered. And then it was like, that was all throughout my public school, my junior high and high school. I was the AV guy.
That was me. That was me. I did that with all my teachers.
How many people did AV in elementary school?
Yeah, don't admit it, but you know what? There you go. So, I used to tell people that it doesn't matter if you get paid or not. It's a lifestyle. Get over it. You learn it because you love it. And I said, and I always tell the kids, do everything you can do. They say to me, oh, you were so lucky. And I said, luck has like this much to do with it. I says, what it has to do with is being everywhere all the time and doing everything you can do, so that something passes by, you're smart enough to grab it when it goes by. I was a perfect example of that was, we were opening for Molly Hatchet, our little stupid East Coast club circuit band, right? And Wayne can attest to some of these kind of things because he lived through this. And we were going to open for Molly Hatchet. And I said to the guys, we had a 6-piece band and we were really pretty good, but we were a copy band. They couldn't write songs to save their ass, right? And I said in our sound check, I said, play the Molly Hatchet tune as the last tune you do at the sound check. Now, I had my Kelsey console, which, you saw a picture of a couple of meetings ago, and they had a sound master next to me, right? So we played the Molly Hatchet tune, and the manager for Molly Hatchet walked up to me and he said, oh my God, these guys are pretty good. And I says, yeah, I've been with them a couple of years now. And he says, how well do you know their music? And I said, God, I love Molly Hatchet. I have the cassette in my van. I listen to them all the time. He says, could you mix the show? And I said, in my sleep. He says, can you do this console? And I said, oh yeah. And I said, where's your sound guy? And he says, he went to the hospital tonight. And I'm like, okay. So we did our hour set. and we took a short coffee break and moved over, sound checked, and hit the ground running. And I left with them that night on the tour and handed the keys to my rig to my A2. And that was my first real tour. And I did 3 more after that and broke into corporate sound, and the rest is history. But it's when you least expect it that shit pops up. And if you're not there to grab it when it goes by, it ain't going to happen. So
I wish.
Yeah, that's like
Mark,
the theme song
Mark
from
J was here to
Candid
hear this.
Camera.
Mark J was here. Mark J was here to hear this, because that's the kind of stuff he loves to hear about.
this, and you know what? It's really hard. And you know, Kenny, it's really hard to do that now because everything has become so corporate. Did we lose
It's
you?
all
or-
about the money. No, it said it's all about the money. I didn't want to step on you. I was saying it's all about the money.
It's
you know?
all about the money. You can't be on the
Too bad.
show.
It's,
you know,
and there's security, and you can't
Yes.
get into places that you could
You
get
know,
into before.
Also, you also need more money to live now than you did when we started.
yeah, but you
I
know,
can
yeah,
live
but
on-
it's all relative.
Yeah,
It's
that's
all
relative.
it's
That's
all relative. It's all relative.
Yeah, because if you got relatives with money, it's okay. You know, that's
Yeah.
what I.
And my-
My
in
first
fact,
band
my-
that I went away with, I made $35 a week.
Yeah,
Nice, nice.
Well,
So,
you know,
my-
I
you
started
know,
probably before most of you. I started 1970, the end of 1970.
I was 71, 72.
Well, I started before you. And back then,
You did.
I made $30 a day when the band worked. $30 a show, not a show, because sometimes there were 2 shows, but $30 a working day. And I was collecting $65 a week unemployment, which was the maximum back then. So it'll tell you where the money was. And I just wasn't making any money. I was trying to survive in New York City on peanuts, but it worked and I was able to make it through.
But your job in college, when you had that job in college, David, with the airline, I thought that was, to this day, I still am fascinated by that job.
That was after college. That was my first job as an electrical engineer. I worked for that company that was doing subcarrier RF stuff. That's a whole nother story. I don't want to get into it
Man,
now.
I would love to hear the rest of these stories, but I really got to run, you guys. I got to get to things.
You
But
got it,
great
Jeff?
seeing you guys, and thanks for all the
Yeah.
stories.
Take
All
care,
right,
Kenny.
well, I hope
Take care.
everything
Right,
comes
later.
out all
Bye,
right
Kenny.
for you.
Hey, Ken.
You know,
All right. Just very quickly about my first job. I was an electrical engineer, and this company had a new product that was in TWA planes. They were test marketing it. So it was, as you would land in a city, in New York and Chicago were the 2 test cities, a news broadcast that was updated hourly would come out over the plane and give you national and local astronauts happened to be landing on the moon at the time. And the Dan Ryan Expressway in Chicago has got this traffic, and they needed somebody to carry a spare receiver and take the flights every day and either make adjustments or replace the receiver. So every day I would fly to Chicago from LaGuardia, and I'd get there and I'd sit in the line shack, no security, no badges or anything. And I would talk to the stewardesses, which is what they were at the time, and say, how's the flight? Did it work? Did it not work? Do you need an adjustment? And then at the end of the day, I would fly back to, not the end of the day, because I had to be home by regular hours, office hours. So at 3 o'clock, I would take a flight back from Chicago to LA. And back then, that was shuttle. That was a shuttle where you didn't even check your bags. You just carried them on the plane. It was a businessman's thing because there were like 4 airlines flying hourly between Chicago and New York. There was TWA and United. I mean, it was that much business back then because there was no telecommuting or any of that stuff. You had to fly for business. So in order to get people on their plane, TWA had staged deli sandwiches and a mini keg of Michelob or Heineken, mini keg of Heineken to serve the passengers to get them on the TWA plane. So this was my job for 6 months. The first 6 months I was there. It was pretty good. Then after that, it was working so well that they took me off that, put a salesman on instead. And then they started working with me as an engineer. And they brought in the guy named Len Feldman. Len Feldman invented quadraphonic radio. So he was a master of subcarrier. And this other business, the way that this company worked was they would have to send through the phone lines to Chicago to a transmitter the news broadcast. And instead of having their own main station, they would find a mono station that wasn't using the subcarrier stereo signal. And so they had a whole half a signal doing nothing. And that's how they would do that. So this was all subcarrier FM. And Len Feldman came and taught me how to do stuff. And this is, an audio god who devised quadraphonic FM radio. So that was my first job. Then the company went out of business. The head guy passed away. All the money passed away. They put me on unemployment, and I sat around for 6 months in New York saying, what do I want to do now? Because I don't want to be an electrical engineer. Boring, 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 boring. And we ran into a guy who was working for the impresario, Sid Bernstein, the guy who put the Beatles in Shea Stadium. And he had a brand new band he was going to manage called Mandrill. And they needed a sound man and a road manager. And I said,
really, Mandrill? Wow.
Yeah. I said, well, their new album was just their first album was just coming out. I said, well, I'm an engineer. And that was it. I had to all of a sudden learn instantly balance lines, electric microphones, all of that stuff that I didn't know, even though I was an engineer. But it came to me really quickly, and the band was a huge hit. And so I started mixing house day one.
Mandrill's great.
1, 2, 3, 4.
They were a great band. So it's one of those, they belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They just don't have the PR for it.
So my brother called me like this past week and said he had a friend whose son wanted to be in this business. And my brother said, can you take him under your wing and have him go out on shows with you and apprentice with you? And I said, I can't do that anymore. That's like, and he's like, well, what happened? And I says, it all became corporate. I said, I can't work. We should all be working for free occasionally when we want to go learn something. Doug, I told you, or Fred, I told you when you're in LA, call me. I'll come out and I just want to hang out with you and learn and see how you do things. And I don't need to get paid. I just need to be around you and help you.
Send me your phone number. I'll let you know the next time I'm out there.
Okay, well, I will do that. Oh, got a pen? I'll tell you what it is, right? Well, we're online. We're
still live. We're almost
wait
done.
until we're not live anymore. But yeah, you can't do that anymore, and it's terrible because that's how we all learned, by just doing and helping and being there, and that doesn't happen anymore. Now you got to work for some AV company that's usually pretty worthless, or do hotel AV, or work for some labor broker. And you know what? That's just like banging your head against the wall for the rest of your life. That's being taught by people who don't know what they're doing. So it's just terrible. And I love hotel AV guys. I got to work with them all the time. Most of them are really nice, but they just don't know how to do stuff.
It's pretty incredible the few times I've gone into a hotel how little they actually know. They're just like a warm body that they've stuck in this.
It's spot. It's just, and the sad thing is all the AV companies, they pretty much just interchange, labor, and it's just,
And then if you go to PRG or to Claire and you get into their training program, you actually learn stuff and you come out an engineer.
When we were, Wayne, you probably remember when we were special services at AVHQ, when I worked for them a long, long, long ass time ago, before the hotel division even came into play, we had an apprentice program where we took driver techs who used to deliver to the hotels and help do setups and stuff. And that's how Charlotte and Linda and a lot of the really good projectionists and video people got going. And we would bring them in our department and as an apprentice, and every year we would vote on them to keep them in the program. And after 3 years, we'd vote on them. And if they were good enough and did well, then we'd vote them into our department. And half of our department came up through the apprentice program. And there's some of the best projectionists and engineers out there. Half the staff that does the Oscars and the Emmys for Sonova, we're all apprentice at AVHQ's staging division's apprentice program. So there's something to be said for that, but nobody's doing that anymore. It's just so sad. It's so sad.
Yep. Well, there's a lot of sad things going on, but we're happy here, and I'm glad that we all came, and I'm glad we all shared, and we're going to stay in the room a little bit longer, but we're going to say goodbye to our streaming audience. And if you want, unfortunately, I can't play the theme song. Something happened with my technology here on this side.
The bird moved.
We're the Eagles. Play the Eagles.
I can't play anything, but let's go back. Let's take a quick peek at the Eagle Cam. Let me get rid of my name here if I can. There he is. There.
Oh, look, Dad's not back yet. Mom's sleeping.
He's sleeping.
It's sleeping, and it's. I mean, wow! Look at that, man! It's like insanely cold out there. He's almost covered with snow, and doesn't seem to care. I love it.
I can't believe he's warm enough. Isn't that amazing?
Feathers.
Yeah, well, they're
You got all
cold-blooded.
those feathers.
Yeah,
Feathers,
but
trap
I was
air.
up that this much, maybe. It's just
Oh, there's an
seems so amazing.
undercoat.
I know, it just seems amazing. Yeah, I put a
Yeah, I was
jacket on. I'm
hoping
still
that,
cold.
I was hoping that the mother would come back so we could watch him feeding, but unfortunately, that's not going to happen this week. But hey, it's basically friendsofbigbearvalley.org if you want to watch it on your own. Friends of Big Bear Valley, all one word, .org, if you want to watch the Eagles. It's pretty cool. I want to thank Kenny Newman for turning us on to that. And with that in mind, before we say goodbye, I always say this. Remember, everything you heard today was an opinion. And today, I have to say, there's one person we didn't hear an opinion from, and that's Wayne Sims, all the way from Wagga Wagga. Why
Yeah,
didn't you
where's
say one
Wayne?
word
Where are
today?
you?
What's going on? Is your microphone broken there?
Oh, no. I was just listening to the all the stuff, and I have some questions, but I can do that after we get
You always
into the
have
chatting.
questions. That's okay. That's what I like about you. Do you want to
Questions are
ask a
good.
question of the Eagle?
The Eagles stuck.
Yeah, well, there he is. He's sleeping. He's sleeping right now, That's it. We don't want to wake him. So anyway, listen, everything you heard today was an opinion, so do your own research, thinking out loud with friends. Next week, 250 consecutive episodes. 250 will be our 250. We'll have a little party, maybe I'll wear a party hat, whatever. I got a heart on right here, you could see it. Nobody got that joke. Okay.
Yeah, we got it.
We did. I was like, where's he going with this? So your room is getting more girly every time we see you.
I'm married now,
Love that.
happy life, happy wife, happy life, I
It's
just
got
heard a story
heart
about
pillows and love on the guitar and
Yeah, baby. I just heard a story about this guy, sitting in a bar and he's drinking and and he's really melancholy. And the bartender says to him, what's going on? He says, "Yeah, man, my wife and I got into a huge fight and she told me that she wouldn't speak to me for a month." And the bartender said, "Well, that's okay. Sometimes a little distance is all right. Month is not so long." And the guy says, "No, problem is the month's over today." Yeah, I thought I would share that joke. Anyway, anybody have anything they want to say before we say goodbye to the streaming audience?
I did want to say in wildlife photography and trail cams, etc., if you go to explore.org, you can pick up many different cameras. My favorite that we used to have on at press tours is the grizzly bears at Katmai Falls, Brooks Falls in Alaska.
Oh, go for the salmon.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
great.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's my plug for trail cams. Explore.org.
Very
I tried to
good.
get a link earlier, but it was offline. It wasn't being cooperative, so you'll have to find it yourself.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Remember, thanks for watching. Remember, you make it happen. Click the like button. And if you really want to be nice, share the show. We are starting to get some serious views. We went over 90,000 last week. Not 90,000 for one show, but 90,000 in total. So considering this 250 shows divided by 90,000, what the hell? Just remember, have a great week. Everything you heard today is an opinion. We're going off the air right now. Bye, everybody, and everybody can wave goodbye. Hold on, let me change this over here to gallery. Yeah, wave goodbye.